Please welcome Shaun Jarvis into the Australian BMX Halls of Fame.
Wow. That was an amazing video, just seeing some stuff there that I haven't seen for a while. So thank you for putting that together. Look, this speech might be long, but I promise next time I'm here I'll make it shorter. Just looking around the room here, I'm looking at a lot of my heroes that I actually grew up reading, seeing in the magazines, like Steve Cassip, Macca, Mick Wilshire, Jamie Hales. So it's kind of bizarre to share that kind of privilege with them. Thank you to the Australian BMX Hall of Fame community, my fellow 25 inductees, all the BMX riders out there, BMX in general, because BMX is rad. I want to honour my mum, Anita, who's here tonight, my dad, who unfortunately can't be here, he's no longer with us, my wife, Alex, thank you, our children, Kira, Daisy, who's here tonight, Cody, Talon, Em and Quinn, and our granddaughter, Harlow. All the Freestyle Now crew, past and present. Without all of them, none of this would actually be taking place. It's hard to believe that a 13-year-old kid from a small coastal town, from a small little village called Perth, could end up here tonight, and I'd still can't believe that I'm here, and thank you, everyone. My parents have been great teachers. I learnt through them that if we didn't have it, we made it. And if the community didn't have it, we made it. Now, not that long ago, maybe 3 weeks ago, it was great to be back up in Onslow doing some BMX stunt shows with Sam Grace, Luke Toos and Andrew Amata. And we were sitting around having some, I think it was breakfast, and Sam asked me, Sam said, "Jarv, what's been your greatest moment?" And Luke replied instantly, "It hasn't happened yet." And I think now, possibly, that moment is pretty much now. Well, actually, I thought it was going to be, but then I realised that 2 days ago, Logan Martin liked one of my videos. So doing BMX stunt shows all around Australia, there are, as you all know, BMX riders, a lot of risk involved. And a couple of years back, one of the biggest risks took place out in Cobram, where Robin Mezza took a triple whip, landed wrong, rolled onto the handlebars and had a emergency flight back to Melbourne in a helicopter. So I'm glad that Robin's okay and he's off doing his thing in Europe at the moment. So that's just one part of things that could go wrong in a show, but there are other things like equipment. So we were at a very famous car race in Melbourne. I'm not going to tell you which one, I'll let you guess, in Melbourne. Zoom! And we were there for 3 days. It was raining on this one day, and obviously with all the PA gear out, we just put a big plastic bag over the PA speakers to protect them from the rain. Were you there on that one, Sam? You were, yeah. You know what I'm talking about. Anyway, so it's raining, and we're in the marquee, and we look over to the safety fence, and there's a spectator pointing. And I'm like, what's happening to the marquee? And then I poke my head out, And what do I see? One of them plastic bags floating just there. And we watched it, and it floated. We weren't far from the track, I got to admit. We weren't, were we, Sam? We were pretty close. And it floated. And it was there then. And we're like, what do we do? It's just floating. And it kept floating over to the track. International car race. Luckily enough, the wind caught it again, and it went a bit higher. And it went higher again, and we were glad that it had passed where the track was. But then there were 7 helicopters flying around. And as we watched it, it was in the flight path of the helicopters. An international race could all come down. As the helicopter come around, we noticed the plastic bag was on the other side of the flight path. Relief. And we watched that plastic bag float all the way to Melbourne. Between 2 buildings to the other side. And to this day, I'm assuming that it landed on someone's car on the M1. See, I see my life as a chain with many links revolving all around a sprocket called BMX. When I was a kid, BMX was my escape from the bullying at school. I didn't have friends there, but in the garage, I had my best friend waiting for me to get home, waiting for me to take it out. It was my best friend that never let me down at all. And that friendship is still going now, 43 years later. 43! Back probably about 79-ish, I managed to buy my first BMX bike, it was a Malvern Star, gold Malvern Star from John's Bike Shop. And John Maloney went on to start the Wanneroo BMX track. And the guy that sold me that bike was Aldo, and Aldo went on to start Prestige Cycles, which was one of our first sponsors with Freestyle Now. In mid-81, my brother told me, he said, yeah, come and check out this jump spot. All the kids are down there building jumps, it's great, it's having fun. And then from the top of the hill, I watched these kids launching themselves over huge jumps. Well, they were probably, but to me, they looked massive. And that was my first BMX moment. My symbiotic relationship with pain and BMX started even before I started racing, learning to jump, and the doubles that we'd built at this track looped out and landed fair on my behind. Mum and Dad had gone to some concert in the city, so it was just me and my brother. And my brother's yelling at me, go up and cook the sausages, because I'd gotten home. And then I just looked down and I just instant pain. And he's freaking out. He thought I'd dislocated my hip or something. So a trip to the hospital to Perth, which back then was a mission. Mum and Dad get home, and where's me? Back in Perth where they were. And that was pretty bad bruise on my bum. On my 13th birthday, I started racing at Marmia BMX track. And then all the other kids in the town had drifted out of BMX, and then I was just stuck with it. And in the rain, I would take my wheelbarrow, my shovel, my raincoat, walk the 2Ks down to the jump spot and build the jumps in the rain. It wasn't far from the beach. It wasn't beach sand, it was clay. It was really good for building jumps and hold together. And I raced all over Perth. I broke my wrist at West Side. If anyone rode the old West Side, if you got lane 1, you had to be the whole shot, or you were going to the bottom of that turn. Got knocked out at South Side, and I didn't know this at the time when I wrote this, so it's kind of fitting that this is in my bit of text here. But how good is Abe Snyder from Malaga BMX track? He made every rider special thanks to his commentary. And I carry his influence in my announcing to this day. Thank you, Abe. My last race which actually you saw up there on the screen, was back in '86 at the Wanneroo State Championships, and that's etched in my mind. I wasn't the best racer, but in that one, I feel that was the pinnacle of my time racing. I got in second behind Michael Figlamini, and as we crossed the line, he turned to me and said, "That was a good race." And they were simple words, but to me, looking up to Michael, they meant a lot. And it's unfortunate he's no longer with us. In '84, I raced at the Australian BMX Championships in Byford, and as you saw in the video, I met Steve and Bob Haro. They changed my life forever. Obviously, seeing both of them in the magazines and idolising them meant a lot. I realised what I wanted to do. And as a 15-year-old kid, meeting Bob Haro and chatting with him and talking with him, to me it seemed like hours, but it was probably only 5 minutes. But that changed my life, and I realised that the special moments that you share with people are important. I didn't know it at the time, but George Molnar was there that day. I never met him until 2 years later, and George and I would go on to start Freestyle Now. In '85, I moved to the suburbs. I found myself surrounded by riders and ramps. There was a quarter pipe down the road at Girraween, limos across the road. There was a jump spot made from limestone. It's a pretty gnarly spot. We'd do trips through the bush to the Warwick shops and get Coke and twisties, come back to the limos, ride, go to the quarter pipe. That was the weekends. It was good. It was great. That was what riding was about. Anyway, word got around that there was some freestyle tryouts happening at the quarter pipe down the road at the Girraween ramp. I went down there with my friend and total shredder Andrew Flynn, which you probably saw on that Freestyle Now zine. He was on the cover of that. We met a bunch of other riders I didn't know, like Hisham and Todd, and I was stoked to get on the Red Line Trick team through Padbury Cycles. And through Todd, I eventually met George. We did a few shows. We did 2 shows with Red Line. One was at the Whiteman Park, the opening of the Whiteman Park, and the other was at, believe it or not, Malaga BMX track. That was 3rd of August, '86. Not long after that, I left the crew, and George and I decided to create our own team. We recruited Brad Dyer, who was living in Australia from California, and that's when Freestyle Now was born. And that summer of '86 and '87 were magic. Just cruising around in my Chevy Bel Air, listening to Devo, bouncing off the walls in Freo, just having a good time riding Fremantle and Scarborough. And we did our first official show December '86 at Mullaloo Primary. '87, the Power Parolda team came through. They were at Balcala Rollerdrome, and we went there. We interviewed them for one of the Freestyle Now zines. Didn't know it at the time, but there was a kid there called Kim Bludson. I later met Kim, probably like 10 years later, at Heathry Shops on his bike, doing some bunny hops over boxes and stuff. Later met Kim again through our Behind the Bars show, where I didn't know it at the time, but his band Dropstick Injectors, we selected some of that for music for the show. And when we re-met each other many years later, I told him about that, and he was like, "Whoa." And I was like, "Whoa." And he was like, "Whoa." So now today, Kim and I, dynamic duo on the mic. I couldn't do without him. I love that guy, so props out to Bludson. But that just goes to show you how the links in the chain are across time. So Freestyle Now, over the years, riders came and gone, and we went through a time when there was no riders. We had Steve Glahesi, he was riding with us then, around about 94, through to September 95. I went to his house to pick him up for a show out in Calabaron. Calabaron's 300 kilometres in the middle of nowhere. And when I knocked on the door, like 6 in the morning or something, his mum's like, "Hey, he didn't come home from the clubs last night." So I had to make the decision, what do I do? Obviously this is before phones and internets. This is talking about 85. So if anyone, most of you might remember that time. Some of you have never had that experience of not being able to contact anyone. I think they were good. Anyway, so I made the decision to drive 300 Ks out to Calabaron, and in that point of time, in that drive out there, I formulated a solo show. Rocked up and did the show on my own. And I did that up until May 2000. So nearly 5 years of solo shows. I recorded my own voice on the cassette, played the cassette, and it would come through. Sometimes it would be like perfect timing. Give Shaun Jarvis a round of applause. Right at the point where I'd done a trick, and everyone would clap and cheer, and they'd be looking for the guy on the microphone, but that was just my voice. But then I met Jason Parker. Now, talking about links in the chain, when I met Jason Parker, it was a bit of a mission. He managed to track me down through Pal and Panther Cycles. At the time, I was importing Graveyard and Kamakura products and into Australia. He managed to track my number down through the magazines. Unfortunately, they printed the wrong number, so that was good for business. But he managed to track me down through Pal and Panther. He gives me a call, come and ride. Sure, we're out the front of my house, we're riding for a bit. We go inside, looking through the photo album, as you do. And then he sees a photo of me doing an air on the quarter pipe. He goes, I know where that was. That was at Whiteman Park. I was like, what? No way. He goes, yeah, way. He saw my very first freestyle show when he was 6. 10 years later, he's at my house riding. And if Jason was here tonight, I'm sure he would say the reason that he rides is because of what he met me. But that just goes to show how strong them links are. In 2018, we were at the Barbagallo Raceway doing a show there, and some guy rocks up. He goes, Shaun Jarvis. And I'm like, yep. He goes, you saved my life. And I was like, what? He goes, remember, you used to pick me up in the Chevy, we'd get out riding, we weren't your crew, we were all in heavy metal jackets and all that sort of stuff, motley crew, but you didn't care, it was all about riding. I was like, yeah, I don't remember the guy, but I remember that time. He goes, yep, you saved me from overdosing on heroin. All my friends overdosed on heroin, I lost 3 friends. But because of you, I didn't. And that was Paul Adams, and you don't know what impact you're going to have on a person ever. So make sure that your impact is good. Last year, we were at the Brunswick show, and a dad comes up to me at the end of the show. Sam was on that one as well. Remember, there was a big bushfire. It was a pretty cool show. It was a good show, that one. He comes up to me and goes, I saw your show 30 years ago. He was 6 when he saw my show at Brunswick. He's there with his 6-year-old son seeing the show again. 30 years later. I don't know what to say with that, but I just said, that's awesome. I can't believe it, but Trent's here tonight. Trent and I have been riding together for 30 years. I didn't know he was coming, and I'm pretty stoked that him and Tanya are here. But I met Trent through his brother Justin. We were out at dinner one night, driving home. In the dark, I see a BMX rider. This was in 95. I see a BMX rider. I pull over in my car, and the guy was like, he thought I was going to have a go at him for not wearing a helmet. I said, you ride BMX? Whoa! I think he had a GT Performer. And I was like, man, I ride BMX. You ride BMX. We ride BMX. That's how rare BMX riders were in Perth in that time. And through Justin, I met Trent, and we've been friends since. Again, about them links in the chain. The last Ben Lee comp, the old Ben Lee, was in 2015, and we did the comp there. And in the under-13s was a young Cooper Wilson. And a few years ago, Cooper started doing shows with Freestyle Now. I didn't realise. How crazy is that link there? Another one, I'm not too sure if you know, there's a rider. Is he here tonight? Where is he? right there. That little guy, Roman DePiazzi. He was awarded the 2022 CASP Freestyle Scholarship. But 10 years ago, he was at a Freestyle Now coaching session in Fremantle at the age of 6. Could have been 5, 6. You were little. You've grown heaps since then. So it goes to show how them links are in that chain. We started a TV show. I didn't even know anything about computers. I had no idea what a video camera was. I had no idea what a video editing was. I had no idea about anything. I rang up Jason. I said, you want to do a TV show for community TV? And he went, yeah. And I went, yeah. And we went, yeah. So we did it. Learned pretty fast. And that first episode we did, we went to the TV editing studio all night long, like all night. And I think it was probably about 3 o'clock in the morning when we'd finished the first 5 minutes of the intro. And then I was like, hey, we're done. I'll delete all the clips we don't need. And guess what I did? Deleted the clip that we just made. Well, by 5 o'clock, we had that clip back together again. Probably better. Learnt fast, and I really appreciate my good friend Andy Romano for helping me through that time. He set me up with the computer, taught me how to use Adobe Premiere. So thank you, Andy. And you can check out them shows on our YouTube channel. That was late 2000. That was before vlogging was even vlogging, and we were doing that once a month for the show, for the TV. 2006, I went to my first BMX games. They were absolutely fantastic. BMX freestyle was just, I don't know how to explain it back then. It was crazy. They had massive, massive competitions. Dave, you were at them? Somewhere, where are you at, Dave? Dave's somewhere around the way. I'm sure he was. Yes, he was. Because I remember him doing an ice pick to 270 off the hitching post on the spine at there. But anyway, in 2007, I met Paul Chamberlain. And we realised there was no flatland competitions in Australia. So guess what we did? We created one. 17 years later, that's still going strong, down underground. So pretty stoked on that. And as you saw in that video, yeah, we did BMX for Floods, 2011. Nationwide jam, every state and territory had an event happening all on the same day, all at the same time. I don't think that's ever been replicated in another country before, but I don't know, the community needed it, so we did. So I went to Japan. That was an amazing time. 2014 was my first time out of the country. Jason said to me, we're going. I said, no, I'm not going. He goes, well, I'm paying for you. And I was like, well, I can't let that guy pay for me. So I brought my ticket, got a passport, and we went to Japan for Flat Arc. And I didn't realize it, but Paul said to me, Bobby Carter's going to be on that trip. Bobby Carter, legendary flatland rider, documenting the flatland scene throughout the world with Diversion TV. I didn't realize it, but he was going to be on that trip. I said to one of my kids at home, had his photo on the fridge, dreams can be reality. I said, I'm going to go ride with that guy. And I looked up to Bobby because of what he was doing with the scene. He'd just been to the Aloha Jam in, obviously, Hawaii, and he had the most beautiful blue hoodie you could ever imagine. This hoodie was just magic. It was just shine this room completely out. Beautiful blue hoodie, Aloha Jam. So after one evening riding at Yanmar Stadium in Osaka, we're heading back to our accommodation. Slight downhill, good grade downhill. I'm at the back. The rest of the crew's out the front, and I see a gap. I see a gap between Bobby Carter and the great Shane Badman. What am I going to do, you think? That's right. I'm going to just fang it down the hill, tuck in, elbows in, knees in, and just send it straight through the middle of these two guys And as I'm going through, I'm just going to go, suckers! Didn't happen. Didn't happen. Now, if you know Shane Babin, he's built like rugby player. This guy's massive. So as I'm about to go through the two of these guys, Shane stands up, takes a pedal. His handlebar goes to the right, just as I'm going through. Hits me in the thigh. From there, I ricochet over to Bobby. And I give Bobby probably like what I got in that first turn at the 84 state champs, the elbows. Everyone knows that track at Byford at the 84 state champs, that flat turn. That's kind of like what I gave Bobby going. This guy, my idol, this beautiful blue hoodie goes straight over the handlebars. Just in his shoulder here, there's a little finger hole. That's right, I ripped his hoodie. I can't believe it. One of my idols, I just destroyed this thing that was rare. And on the way back, I am cursing myself. I am just cursing so hard. I can't believe that I just... Lenny, Chris Letchford, he was like, don't worry, mate. Bobby will remember you forever. If you're listening, Bobby, I'm sorry about your hoodie. We're almost done, people. So this year, I competed at the Australian BMX Freestyle Championships here in the Gold Coast. I rode in the Masters class, riding against riders who were young enough to be my children. So I went to go and I nominated myself and I got into that in the over 30s and I'm trying to get practice sessions. I couldn't get practice sessions. I couldn't register for a practice session. I ring up Chris. I'm like, dude, there's availability. There's spots there. And I'm like, dude, I can't. He goes, look, I can see it. I'm like, I can't see it, dude. I won't let me register. And then Chris is like, wait, how old are you? I was like, 56. He's like, oh, it's limited at 55. Well, let me change that for you. So I got registered in that. And I really appreciate that. And I think more older riders should be competing in competitions as the Australian Championships. In 2013, my life changed again, and I met my love, Alex. And her support strengthened me, and with her beside me, Freestyle Now grew stronger. Alex sometimes likens me to Yoda, moving slowly, groaning due to old age. It's got old age written. Due to injuries. I'll just strike that, injuries. But then moving completely different when I'm on my bike, just like Yoda fighting Count Dooku. More than anything, BMX has given me a life purpose, creativity, connection, and I've been lucky to build something that not only promotes the sport, but also communities, builds confidence in young people, and brings a bit of joy to crowds of all sizes. I stand here today and consider myself to be Australia's oldest professional BMX rider. Riding BMX is my profession, it's my job. I still get rad, show rad, teach rad for a living, and I'm still riding, still achieving, and still loving every moment of it. In 2013, I picked up the Oz Cycling Freestyle Development Coach Certification. There's just another link in the chain. I've ridden for years. I've ridden in over 1,670 shows in more than 450 locations and organised more than 380 competitions and spent more hours than I can even think coaching and mentoring. Now, hearing all the stories tonight, the people, the shows, the friends I've made along the way, as I said at the start, I think you can see that my life's being a chain, each link connected, all riding on that one constant sprocket called BMX. I might cry now, just letting you know. That little kid who once stood on the hill watching others ride could never have imagined the journey BMX has given them. This BMX has been my constant, my teacher, and my lifelong friend. And tonight, being welcomed into the Australian BMX Hall of Fame is another link in that chain, one I'll carry for me forever. Freestyle now before it's too late!